that we've shown you how easy it is to provision a workload, I want to peel the onion back and show you a couple of other aspects of the platform, just so you understand the deeper connective tissue. So when we were provisioning, we had the ability to provision into different clouds that I had attached to Morpheus. So it could be VMware, Nutanix, OpenStack, others. So I want to show you how easy it is to actually add those clouds. So if I go into the infrastructure section of Morpheus, I go into my clouds, you can see I have a number of clouds already integrated into my environment. I'm just going to go dig in and pick on this VMware cluster. So if I hit the little pencil icon, you can see the type of information that when I added this cloud, all I had to do was give it a name. I had to give it some metadata, a location. I could expose that to all of the tenants in Morpheus, or I could select an individual tenant. So in this case, I've added it to a tenant. I've pointed at the vCenter API. I've given it some administrative credentials, told it which version of vCenter I'm connecting to. Once I give it that metadata and save changes, it is going to go reach down into vCenter, pull that in, and it's going to start to synchronize and inventory all of the information about this VMware environment. So here I'm looking at this VMware demo cluster. I get a nice summary, but I pull in any clusters that are running on that environment. So for example, if there's a Kubernetes cluster running nested inside my VMware, I'm going to pull that in. I can get host level data about my VMware host running ESXi. I can inventory all of the VMs. I get a list of the containers. I see the networks, data stores. I can see what policies I have attached to this environment. I get a history of this environment. I even have a nice wiki if I need to keep track of this environment or make some notes for myself. So it's an operational dashboard that gives me all of the information about this VMware cloud that I added. So that's a little bit on the infrastructure section. I also have the ability to attach things like clusters inside infrastructure. So here is where I can go add things like a Kubernetes cluster. This could be the Morpheus Kubernetes service, which is our opinionated CNCF compliant Kubernetes cluster. I can provision a VM Essentials KVM-based cluster. I can also reach up into the public cloud and provision public cloud Kubernetes clusters. So for example, an AKS cluster up in Azure. So clustering is where I actually provision and manage the runtimes that my workloads run on. If I go, for example, into this MKS or Morpheus Kubernetes cluster, you can see I pull in a lot of the objects from the Kubernetes APIs. I get versions of different packages are running. I can run kubectl commands. I can check my access, so things like namespaces, roles. I get information on the containers running on my Kubernetes cluster, daemon sets, stateful sets, any jobs that are running, network storage, all of the operational data that I, as an administrator, might want to quickly and easily manage my Kubernetes cluster, even if I don't want to dig into the command line and into the guts of Kubernetes. I get a lot of that information at my fingertips. So outside of infrastructure, one of the other places that's often useful to dig into is how we think about role-based access. So Morpheus is a multi-tenanted platform, so I can securely separate different groups of users and infrastructure so that nobody can see what everyone else is doing. But one of the other things is roles. So when I go in as a user, I'm assigned a role. So I could be an administrator, a developer, I can create custom roles. But by using roles, I'm able to expose different features and functions very securely. So let's say, for example, I wanted a developer to only have access to certain clouds or certain types of workloads. Just about every API command, every feature in Morpheus is subject to role-based access. So for example, if I go into this default developer role, you can see here I've got different permissions that I can give this user. So it could be different features. I can assign this developer to different groups of clouds. Instance types is where I would be able to constrain what kind of workloads they have access to in that service catalog. Different blueprints, reports. Again, every aspect of Morpheus I can either hide or expose based on role. So role-based access, a very deep part of the platform worth digging into. Because if you're going to give end users self-service, the ability to provision things on demand, you better have the ability to keep them in guardrails. And that's really where the balance happens between what developers and project teams need and what IT is worried about. So you get the best of control while giving people freedom to go provision on demand. Last piece that's worth taking a minute to show in a demo is the operations view. So one of the things that's very important when you're thinking about multi-cloud environments is cost. So one of the things we can do is real time, we can do things like cloud costing. We get analytics views into every cloud, cluster, user, application that's running across this environment. So if I go into my cloud cost report, I can see here I'm able to slice and dice real time. What am I spending inside VMware, AWS, Azure? What tags am I using? I can sort by tag. I can constrain this. I can look across different tenants. I get access into a mountain of data around things like cost. I can also apply that to things like workload use if I want to look at it by application, if I want to look at it for things like capacity planning. There's a rich analytics view inside Morpheus. But one of the things we're able to do is we take that analytic data and we actually pull it into the guidance section of Morpheus. So guidance is where we're able to see how efficient or inefficient our users are using our infrastructure. So here, I'm attached to a number of different clouds, but I can see that Morpheus has actually run some analytics to say, I may be over-provisioned either on premises or in the public cloud. So let's say, for example, I let a user provision an extra large machine up in AWS, but they're only using 5% of its available memory or CPU. That's a gigantic waste of money. And here in our own demo environment, don't tell Antonio, we're wasting $4,300 a month in our public and private cloud environment. But while a lot of FinOps tools will show you that you're sick or give you examples of what you're spending, with Morpheus, we take it one step further. Because we're a control plane, we're attached to these different on-premises hypervisors and cloud accounts. When I go in here, I can see that this machine, for example, I'm not provisioned very well. I'm only using 15% of the available compute, 22% of the available memory. Morpheus is going to recommend that I resize this instance. I right size it, which is going to save me upwards of $80 a month. So you can think about that across a large enterprise that might have 1,000 or 10,000 virtual machines running. The savings can add up very quickly. Oftentimes we find most enterprises are wasting 30% or more of their public cloud spend simply by not putting guardrails in place or managing their costs effectively. So analytics and guidance, a very important part of the platform, well worth digging into in more detail in demos. So invite you to look at our documentation, download our community edition, let us know if we can help, but hopefully that gives you a little taste of what you can get into once you dig into Morpheus.